Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be able to speak to my dearest friend and colleague, Marwa Osman, today, despite the grief and the loss and the anger that everyone is feeling across Lebanon and actually across the world. We'll talk about that. Marwa, first of all, I actually wanted to pass on a number of messages. I won't read them all out, but they were messages of support, condolences, just trying to send strength and empathy to you and to all the people in Lebanon and Palestine, of course, across the region who are facing the threat of this Zionist psychotic machine, which is, just rolling on regardless of international law or any kind of geopolitical breaks whatsoever. Let's first of all talk about the assassination, what took place, how you heard about it. Just express to us in your own words, if you can.
Thank you very much, my dear Vanessa, for having me, and condolences to all the free peoples of the world for the martyrdom of the master of the axis of resistance, Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah, our leader and commander martyr, who passed the way that he would have always wanted. First of all, what we say, qurbatan la ta'ala, meaning for the highest objective, which is to serve Allah Almighty, and in the road that he has always fought for, which is the liberation of Palestine from the Zionist colonial apartheid occupation. I think no other postmodern commander has had the honor of being targeted by such a war machine that is maybe has, for the first time in history, have used all of these weapons. 80 tons, if I'm not mistaken, of explosives were dropped in one area, in a residential area, to make sure that they assassinate in the most horrific terrorist act of this century, a man who they couldn't face, basically only because he was one of the very few men in the region that continued to say no to Zionist Israel and to the American empire. So condolences to everyone. And thank you for allowing me to voice the maybe not only the grief, but also the steadfastness of my people, because I have a lot to talk about. I'm preparing a video of my own to talk about, especially after how I heard the statement, or the official statement that was released by Hezbollah military media, because as I think, as everyone has already saw, as everyone has already seen on the internet, I was on live broadcast with RT. Yeah. And we were actually discussing this issue, and we were at the issue of, we already had discussed the reports, because there were still reports at that time. They were not still confirmed by the Hezbollah military media. And we were at the point of discussing what Netanyahu was saying at the UNGA, and how he's basically just mocking the UN. As he should, by the way, because the UN is a sham. And if they allow such a genocidal maniac to stand up and insult them, then they deserve the insulting, because they did nothing to stop him. But we were discussing that, and we were discussing how he actually gave the green light for this assassination while he was at the UN. Yes. And I was explaining this issue, and she stopped me, the nice lady at RT, and I don't know what her name is, and she told me, well, we have now confirmation, and if you don't know me, if you've never listened to any of my yapping online. If you've never watched my show, if you've never read any of my writings, any of my articles, any of my posts, then you don't know who I am. And who I am is the daughter of this man, the spiritual daughter of this man, as are all of the Lebanese people who mourned him that day.
Yeah.
People can call me whatever they want. Honestly, I don't care about everything that happened online. Actually, it was nice because it allowed people across the globe to know that we love the man
Mm.
and we miss the man, the leader, the commander. But at the same time, it really doesn't uh, affect the way that we support the resistance. And I'll be talking about this in a bit. But
Mm.
I knew about it, and it was a shocker because I was concerned the night before, and we were talking together, Vanessa. If you remember, we were
Yeah.
we were texting, and I told you, look, I have weird. There's a bit of a confusion. I have a weird feeling because, and we were talking about the heavy blow. I mean, I was telling you how I was 10 kilometers away from the actual targeted area, yet we could hear the bombs, the missiles being sent, and how our building was shaking as if it was being. I personally thought that the highway outside the safe house that I'm in right now is has been targeted. That's how heavy. That's how close I felt that attack, and I felt it even closer from the attack that happened the Friday before the last, when they targeted the Radwan Force commander and the leaders as well. If you remember, the
Yeah.
Radwan Force commander Ibrahim Aqil and 13 other Radwan forces with 57 civilians, I'm sorry, who were killed in that two apartment buildings, 40 two buildings, 40 apartments, if you remember
Mm-hmm.
when they
Yes, I
first
do.
bombed. Yeah, and that was just 500 meters away from my house,
Mm.
so it was understandable that my building was shaken. But this 10 kilometers away, I knew that instant when I read that it was in Dahi, I knew that it was a bunker buster bomb. I knew that it was targeting someone very important. And if you remember, we were talking about this, and I said, look, no, if something happened, we would have heard about it. And I think that they themselves weren't sure because they were trying to get to the area where the meeting was being held. And again, honestly, I've lived there in that area in Dahi, not the area that was hit, the suburbs of Beirut, but I lived in the suburbs of Beirut for the past, I don't know, like 17 or 18 years, and never in a million years would I have ever thought that that area is where the let's call it the headquarters of Hezbollah, but it's not the headquarters. It's one of the offices that Hezbollah resistance operates in.
Mm.
Because I literally drive by there every day, and I've never every day. That's a road that I take when I come back from work or when I want to get my kids from school.
Yeah.
And I pass by there, and you don't even notice that there's something there. It's normal life. It's a residential area. It's people, uh, uh, buildings, shops, parking spaces, and whatnot. So we didn't know who they were targeting. So we didn't even know that this was one of the Hezbollah main offices, if you will, that is
Mm.
underground.
Mm.
So we knew, and as I told you, we were talking about it, you and I, and we just said we'll just wait. I mean, if there's bad news, we'll hear about it, and that was that. And I went to bed that night a bit late because I was concerned about the bombardment campaign that they started. Because I still have family members who refuse to leave the Dahi suburbs. Mainly, I'm talking about my grandmother and my grandfather. They absolutely refuse. They're still there. They refuse. They don't want to leave, and I've tried everything with them. They just don't want to leave. So I
Mm.
was concerned for their safety because they started the big campaign, the bombardment campaign, and so we didn't have any sleep. We woke up that morning late, and I had a couple errands to run, and then I came home, and RT had scheduled an interview with me, and it happened, and that happened. And
Mm.
she told me on live TV that no, now we have a confirmation. I had to log off. I should have been more poised, but if you know me, if you know Marwa, you know that I am a firecracker. I cannot contain my excitement. I cannot contain my anger, and obviously I couldn't contain my emotional distress. And I had to log off because I am uh, uh, I usually I have tears of joy and tears of pain that usually run fast on my cheeks, and I usually do it silently. This is how I express my feelings usually. But that moment, I had to log off because I needed to scream. I needed to scream. And I'm not even shy or embarrassed. This is emotional distress. I had to release the shock. I had to release the grief. And I had, as I told you, I just put shoes on and I left my family and I went for a run. That specific second, all of this happened in less than 2 minutes. I needed to get out of the space that I felt I was suffocating. I needed to leave. And I think it was a good thing that I did because I went out for a run. And what I saw is something that I will never forget, Vanessa. And my brain is the type of brain that gives me amnesia, that usually makes me forget things that I try to suppress. That usually things that I do want to remember, but they cause a lot of pain. Then my brain just erases them. This is how my brain functions. But this, what I saw, is something I know I'm never gonna forget, because what I saw is people hugging each other in the streets, screaming and crying, not wanting to believe the news. People across the world might not understand this bond between a people and a political leader, because they don't understand what this political leader means for the natives of this land, especially people in Bekaa, and especially people of South Lebanon. That's us, because our lands were being occupied by illegal colonial settlers for 18 years. And it was that man who, in less than a decade, when he became Secretary General, was able to liberate that land and allow us our land back, liberate us, liberate our prisoners, our detainees. And we were able to live where we're supposed to live, in our villages, in our towns. And um, I don't know if I have I don't know why I have this memory of you having been to my have you ever been to my house in Finan, Vanessa?
No, I
We were
go
planning,
to
weren't
the
we?
south. Yeah, I was definitely going to come and visit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know why, and maybe because I admire you so much, I have that vision in my brain. But um, it is heavenly. Southern Lebanon is heavenly, just like the northern part of Palestine is heavenly. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth, because they're still untouched. They're still it's very much nature as it is, except for a couple of mountains that Israel had burnt to the ground during the occupation, not allowing any trees to grow. But we were on the road. We had planned. I mean, that part of South Lebanon had already planted close to 10 million trees in the area, which is a huge number, which means that the ecosystem was about to be revived again. So you can imagine what that means to us, what that land, what that house means to us, especially that we spent almost a decade, my husband and I, building that house after we bought that land. Because we were planning on moving there and spending our, I'm not going to say senior years, even before that, in that area. I don't know now when we're going back, but I know for sure we are. And I don't care if we're going to go back to find rubble. We'll just rebuild again. We are used to this. But people don't understand what this means to us, and that this man was behind that feeling of safety, of home, of dignity, of liberation, of supporting the oppressed. I was there on October 8th when the resistance decided to get on board the October 7 Al-Aqsa flood operation and support Gaza, because they knew that Zionist Israel is going to do what it's doing. And we were all okay with it as part of the community of the resistance, because why should we stand and watch our brothers and sisters in Gaza be slaughtered this way while the world just continues its life while providing Israel with top-notch weaponry to kill more humans? No, that's not us. That's not our ideology. That's not our dignity. That's not our brotherhood and sisterhood towards those people. Absolutely not. I mean, the same way that we stood with Syria, the same way that we stood with Yemen, with Iraq, we're going to stand with Palestine, because Palestine is the main goal and the main cause for everyone in this region. And I believe that what Netanyahu tried to do over the past 2 weeks, which, by the way, now he's high on some sort of victory. What kind of victory is he talking about? I don't know, because if he thinks that by implementing the terrorist attack that happened on September 17 and 18, the pagers attack and the walkie-talkies attack, if he thinks that that's a genuine victory, he's so mistaken. But because his regime's economy will never survive this. No one's going to buy their technology anymore. Neither anyone's going to, no one's going to buy Western technology anymore, because it has proven to be lethal to own such technology. And second of all, the assassinations of high-level commanders, the idiots in Zionist Israel, they're treating the resistance as if it is an organized, normal army, when it's not. It's an institutionalized resistance. It means it is based on hierarchy, which means every commander actually trains and makes ready not one, not two, but at least 3 or 4 commanders that could take after him, because we are at war and we've been at war for the past year. So they've already planned and replanned everything and made sure that not a day goes by without that position being filled. And even the position of the top position, because over this past year, every time Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah had a speech, he would always say that whatever a commander goes, we are ready to give that banner to the one who is waiting to start his role. And he multiple times he gave us heads up that he might be next. We just loved him so much to a point that we didn't believe that that might happen. We should have known better, given the fact that this is Zionist terrorist Israel that we're talking about. But that's not what we're discussing. What we're discussing is how heavy of a loss this has been felt across the region, even I could dare say across the world, because I've been watching the protests across the world happen, from the land down under to the Far East, to Europe, to America, to Latin America. It has been reverberating in support of Lebanon and the resistance, and in dismay over the terrorist attack against the Secretary General of Hezbollah, only because he decided to support the people of Palestine and not leave them alone. So people need to understand that this is a big blow emotionally, but not practically. It has nothing to do with the strategies that the resistance had built. Otherwise, Hezbollah would have been no longer there after the assassination of Abbas Musawi in 1992. But look what happened. 10 years later, we were liberated. 6 years after that, we had the biggest war in Lebanese history, and we made the Israelis pay 33 days, and then they begged for a ceasefire. Till the last moment, the resistance was still firing. Now, one of the biggest wars in the region that happened in less than 3 days, we had more than 700 martyrs in Lebanon. That would, by the way, amounts to a genocide, because if you take the numbers of the Lancet, the numbers from Gaza, that says it's about 200,000 civilians killed in Gaza over the course of at least 10 months. If you divide that, you get a number, sadly, and we're talking about numbers, but you get a number which is 600 per day. And Lebanon had already surpassed that, which means it is a genocide. Now what's going on in Lebanon with the numbers increasing at such a big pace, this is how a genocide starts. So they are repeating the same tactic that they did to Gaza, but they keep forgetting that Lebanon is not besieged. Even if they say they want to besiege us, it's impossible, because their plans failed in Syria. Hence, they cannot. If what they want to shut down the airport, they can. They want to shut down shipments, they can, but they cannot shut down the land. And that is what is the biggest blow that they felt after Hezbollah entered the war in Syria and helped the Syrian Arab Army to regain control, especially of the land areas around the Lebanese map, basically the Lebanese-Syrian border. Or else their plans would have worked before now. They would have attacked us way before now. But they have gone mad by thinking that by taking out the commanders in the resistance, then Hezbollah will not be operating anymore. I mean, the same moment that they killed, assassinated Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah, and they kept killing commanders, at that moment, missiles were still being fired to a point that we saw a missile for the first time crossing 150 kilometers all the way to occupy Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And we also what happened, it took the lights out. Can you imagine another one that would take the lights out in Tel Aviv? I'm not going to imagine. We're going to see this. Khalas, Israel has passed all red lines, that we are in an all-out open war. There's no more maneuvering and deterrence equations, because Israel already broke all of that.
I mean, you know, I think that a lot of questions, particularly on social media, are being asked about how on earth could this happen? I mean, I saw today the photographs of, because as you mentioned, these offices or headquarters were deep, deep underground.
Yeah.
And we
bunker buster bombs.
Yeah.
They happen because of technology, and I'll tell you how.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just listen. I'll just listen to what you wanted to say.
No, I mean, you know, I think this is it. People are raising questions and saying, well, how on earth, you know, did Hezbollah, did his security corps allow this assassination to take place in Dahe? Where, of course, they had already
well, some people were not happy by the fact that Sayyid Hassan was still in Dahieh. Hello, 33 days of war in 2006. He never left. Where do you want him to go? If he leaves, he actually would be in danger. But people might say, well, look, he stayed and they killed him. Well, yes. And the issue here is one word, Vanessa, internet. The internet. What do I mean? Since the beginning of the war, and if you remember, like at the early stages of the war, where there was a speech for Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah where he was telling people that the smartphone is the biggest agent of all, that we can be operatives without even knowing that we are operatives, because we are all having dealing with smartphones and including our everyday life routine via our smartphones and via technology. And he said this is the biggest threat for security in times of war. And I think this is why the Zionist entity was not able to take out the command center of Hamas in Gaza, because they operate in a very different way. They operate in a way that literally goes beyond sending pigeons, like, you know, for messages, which is the best way. And I'm dead serious about this. Lebanon, all the data in Lebanon, everything, data in the hands of the government, meaning anything that you want to do in the government, any kind of paperwork, you're going to have to put down a phone number, right?
Yeah.
That phone number, if it is inserted in the Lebanese government's database, it's in the hand of Israel. Why? You can search how Israel actually takes control of the internet that comes to Lebanon. You know that we have cables of internet that come in the sea, that I think they come from Cyprus or from somewhere else in Europe. And Israel takes control of that. So all the data, to a point that there is a big deal in the Lebanese parliament, that all the official emails that happen between ministers, even the Ministry of Defense, it's like we have CC Shlomo. They're watching every step, every email that's being sent. And that's at an official level. Now let's talk about the resistance. Obviously, operatives, commanders, leaders, even members who are fighting in the resistance, they have no technology on them, except for the pagers that later was evident that they were rigged with detonating devices before they were even sent. So they were rigged from the manufacturing house. But other than that, they don't use technology. But technology is everywhere around them. And that is why we have seen a lot of assassinations on motorbikes and on cars. If those people who were assassinated, they don't use mobile phones, they don't use technology, how on earth was Israel capable of pinpointing them? I'll tell you how. Internet around them. Lavender, Pegasus. I think the third one is, I think, Who's Your Daddy? I think that's what it's called. Anyways, those three, and especially if it's Lavender and Pegasus, have been paid, billions of dollars was paid by Pegasus, and guess who bought it? the UAE and the Saudis, because they are literally watching everyone in their own territories. They watch every move. And what do I mean by that is you don't need to have a smartphone in your hands to be pinpointed. You just need to pass by someone who does, or pass by a security camera that has that is connected to the internet, or pass by any digital device, like any tech device that can catch your image or the imprint of your voice. And that is why most of the people who were assassinated on motorbikes or in cars were assassinated on highways, where major companies have CCTV cameras linked to the internet. Do you remember at the first week of the war when I told you, I think I was talking to you because, well, let's face it, we text every day. You are my best friend. So we were talking, and I told it I'm going to Khiam, and you're like, you're mad. I told you, no, I have to, because I need to uh, just to cut the internet and the electricity from my house.
Yeah.
And this was a vital moment for me because I had CCTV cameras, security cameras around my house. And the first 2 days, and I'm telling you, like, it was October 9 and 10, I was having breakfast with my husband, and we had our phones up, and we opened the cameras from our Khiam house. We were in Beirut, and we were watching the bombardment campaign on the mountain facing our house. And at one single moment, I just looked at my husband and said, well, if we are seeing this, then anyone else who can simply just hack into the system, into the router of the house, they can see that too.
Yeah.
And we literally just got in the car and went up to Khiam to completely deactivate all of this, because we wanted to make sure that no one is killed, whether combatant or civilian, because of our CCTV cameras. Because even if we didn't know, now we know. So it's our responsibility. And at that moment, we started telling everyone about this. And there was a big campaign in Lebanon telling people to unhook their CCTV cameras from the internet,
I remember.
and unhook the routers from their houses. And if they don't need the electricity, to just turn off the electricity in their houses. Technology now is the biggest enemy for resistances that do not have an equal capacity and capability of the technology that is in the hands of our enemy. And don't get me wrong, it's all with a green light from the United States of America, from the biggest terrorist regime that is controlling this world, that needs to be dismantled as soon as possible, because everyone is now at risk of being killed, murdered, basically robbed of everything that they have, because they are completely linked through their devices to that empire. And I think that's basically why we have spoken about this so many times, about why they actually initiated that attack on Syria, because it refused to be linked to that system. Same thing with Russia, same thing with North Korea, same thing with Iran, same thing with Cuba, same thing with Venezuela. So it's not only saying no militarily, it's also saying no economically, financially, and most importantly, technologically.
Yeah.
Hence why there are big question marks as to why Mr. Elon Musk opened Starlink in Yemen, over Yemen, because they have no control whatsoever over Yemen. So they decided to use their own internet and allow the people to hook to it, so they can have eyes and ears in every street in Yemen.
Yeah, and I mean,
That's
just to be clear,
case.
that was actually rejected by Ansarullah, but was
Yeah.
accepted by the illegitimate presidency that is under the control of Saudi Arabia. Just to be clear, because a few people asked me about that, like, okay, but why is Yemen allowed Starlink? Well, they didn't. Ansarullah, the resistance movement.
It's the puppets. It's the Saudi puppets who allowed it.
Yeah.
Because people don't really know. We need to
Yeah.
educate them more, inshallah, in upcoming weeks about Yemen and what Yemen is and how it's divided and whatnot. But this is mainly how these things are happening, Vanessa. And at the time of the bombing, there were reports coming. I don't know. I've read a couple of reports by the what I'd like to call the prostitutes in the West, who just ride the wave of the US and Israeli narrative without even flinching when it comes to fake news, when it comes to reporting about casualties, when it comes to basically just lying by omission, or not caring about the civilians who were killed, or the war crime that was committed, in order to get to someone who they just wanted to take out, despite the fact that even if they took out, it's going to change nothing in the equation. So I read a couple of reports, and it's being said that multiple jets were used to fire those bombs. And I read somewhere that it is 20 bombs. And another place it was said that it was 30 bombs. I'm not sure how many. I don't care how many. You could just look at the images and you could see that it was a devastation.
Yeah.
Meaning that they are capable of implementing this devastation, but if they do not have the eyes and ears, hence why the resistance was bombing all of those towers at the beginning of the war, to make sure that Israel is deaf mute when it comes to is deaf blind when it comes to and hopefully mute, inshallah, when it comes to the area, the bordering area between Palestine and Lebanon, for the resistance to be able to operate without Zionist Israel knowing about them. So internet, the connection, the technology that Israel is using is the main, if you will, weapon, is the primary weapon that it is using to try and they break the backbone of the resistance. But it will not work. Why will it not work? Because the resistance have made precautions earlier on in this war, and in the post September 17 terrorist attack that happened with the pagers, the resistance also started a new tactic when it comes to communications. And I think that is why they, in less than a week, they targeted whatever was left from these leaders, because it was the last piece of information that they were able to gather with the intel that they had. Obviously, that intel did not come from Israel alone. It came also from Brits, from French intel, British intel, and American intel in the region. So yes, we're being watched. We're being watched closely. And evidently, the biggest evidence for that is they can target people wherever, to a point that they targeted the head of the, who was he? I think he was head of the Hezbollah front in the Matan and Kisrwan area, where they targeted his house in Kisrwan, and he had people who have been displaced from South Lebanon to his house, and they just targeted their apartment from the entire building. So that was a precise targeting, which they are fully capable of, by the way, but they choose destruction in order to plant the seed of terror in the hearts and minds of the public. But it's a big failure. So we need to get rid of anything that would allow the technology to work. And I think the resistance is already on that. They're on that.
Yes. I think what's also important for people to understand is this entire AI surveillance, automatic kill complex that has been created. Never to create life, only ever to take life, as I keep saying. Has been developed for years, and of course you have the Unit 8200, which one is it? Amman, unit.
The 8200 is part of Amman, and it's basically it's basically a project where they get every year the smartest teenagers that they can find across the globe, and they try to lure them into Zionism. They train them. They become top-notch hackers and top-notch engineers, computer engineers, and they bring them to the 8200 program. And they use them to infiltrate the privacy of every human on this planet, not only us here in West Asia. And no one can stop them unless this is discussed and a solution is found at a global level. The UN can do nothing about it anymore. If the UN had played its role correctly, we wouldn't have been here at the moment. But we need to work on making it illegal for these people to operate the way that they are. But I don't think that they can I don't think that they're ready to hear anything anymore. I think the only way to get rid of these people is war, and I think we are looking at the very early stages of that war.
Yes. Um, who will replace, I mean, who is the person who will be able to replace Nasrallah? Because, of course, you know.
Let me start by telling you, look, when in 1992, when Zionist Israel
Mm,
assassinated Sayyid Abbas Musawi, and people really don't know a lot about Sayyid Abbas Musawi, and I keep telling them, dudes, you need to listen to the man, because if you are in love with the charisma of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, you will find Abbas Musawi to be literally his leader, you know, and he was his leader and his mentor and his idol. And he was an amazing, extraordinary man. And he was taken too early, by the way, by Zionist Israel. And no one knew anything about Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, to a point that you can watch one of his Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's interviews where he was telling people what happened, that he was taking care of the funeral procession, and he came back for the big meeting of the council to vote for the new Secretary General, and he just arrived, and everyone had already told him, we already, the meeting had been convened, we have come to a decision. And he was like, okay, who is it? And they said, you. And he said, no, find someone else. They said, no, we'd rather have you. And he was just 31 years old at the time. So we don't know who it's going to be. We anticipate that it's going to be a young man, just like Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was, because this is a new phase and needs new blood. And there might be an intermediary phase, meaning we might see a phase that we have already known in Hezbollah to be the current Secretary General until this war is over, and then they would have a proper voting session. Or we might see someone with a military background being appointed as the Secretary General, as the current timing necessitates. But all of this is literally me just having theories in my mind according to how much I know about Hezbollah. And I know, alhamdulillah, I know enough to have a theory in mind. But all of this is just, I'm anticipating. I really cannot say this will happen or that will happen. But today was a very important milestone, because we are now day 3 after the assassination, and it's the first time we hear a high level commander in Hezbollah, political commander, the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sheikh Naim Qasim, giving a speech. And I think the speech is very important. And I think Israel was listening to it very tentatively, because everything he said, it was very brief, up to the point, but it said everything that needed to be said. And the people are feeling much better after it, because there was confusion. Now we just await for the day and place, the date, time, and place of the funeral procession, because it's going to be something that the last time that we've witnessed would be during the funeral procession of Haj Qasim Sulaimani.
Yes.
All of Lebanon, and I'm pretty sure a big bunch of Syria will be here, and Iraq, to take part of the funeral procession. There have been a lot of talk about where basically the shrine of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah will be. There are also 2 theories for that. Some people are saying it's going to be right here in Beirut, just above his own son, Hadi Nasrallah. Others are saying it is in Najaf, beside Imam Hussein's shrine in Karbala. That would be the highest of all honors, but it would be heartbreaking for us, because we've been waiting to talk to him for so long. The least that they could do is make a shrine for him here, so we could go and tell him how much we're gonna miss him, but how much we know that he's with us. It's gonna be heartbreaking if they take him away, but we understand if this is his wish. We only want him to be happy, just as he was proud and happy of us in this life. We want him to be also happy in the afterlife. But it's going to be heartbreaking for a lot of people if he's not here in Lebanon. And wherever he is, I think we need the closure.
Yes, no, for sure.
We need to, we need to do the march behind that coffin
Mm.
to feel closure. Because there are a lot of people who are still in denial, Vanessa. I do understand. I'm trying to be helpful to the community around me and talking to them and telling them to be patient and sending all sorts of messages and voice notes and being in the community and helping people, especially the displaced, find safe houses, find mattresses, food, water, sanitation, whatever it is, and then just trying to, because people don't care anymore. They don't care if they sleep without a ceiling because they are devastated by the loss of their leader. So you need to bring up the morale again.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people have brought up their own morale by convincing themselves that he did not die. So
Yeah,
that's
I
the
saw
first
that.
stage of grief, which is denial.
Yeah.
And we need to help them go through those stages because not everyone is Marwa. I go through stage 2 and stage 5 immediately. And I get sticking. I stick at stage 2, which is anger. And
Mm.
then you have the acceptance. I did all of that in less than 12 hours. I know I might need psychiatric help, but that's how it operates. I'm truthful to myself. I'm not embarrassed to hide it. That's who I am as a human being. I accept it and move on. Every now and then, if I think about it a bit, I might have a tear or two because it is heartbreaking because he's such an amazing man with such an amazing history. But at the end of the day, this is what he loved the most. He wanted to go out of this world uh, serving the oppressed. And this is how he went out at the hands of the vile terrorists of our era.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm very proud of for him. I'm so happy for him, something that science will never understand. They've been bugging me over the past 2 days for that clip of me crying. They don't know what kind of a woman I am. They don't know that by them reacting this way, it means that even our tears, which show love and respect for our leader, is bugging them. What kind of a psychotic community are they? But it's nice. It's good. It's fine because we will not stop. We have nothing else to lose.
Mm.
Look at
No, and
Gaza.
I think,
Look at the resilience of Gaza. We
yeah.
learn from those people. We will keep our heads up high and we will continue on the path and we will do whatever Sayyid Hassan himself would have loved to see us do. That's how we will honor him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that's what I'm just trying to, this was what my sister wrote this morning. I sent her one of the speeches of Sayyid Nasrallah when he's talking
Yeah.
about the siege and the fact that
Yeah.
the resistance is not besieged. The West is besieged. And this is what
Yeah.
she wrote. His words, the veneration of that which cannot be known and all of nature is in such stark contrast to the dense materialism of the real infidel. And I think, and she's, as I've said to you, she's not
Yeah.
someone, she's someone that follows, she's someone that has enormous sympathy for Palestine, for the resistance,
Yeah.
through my work, but
Yeah.
also through her own research. But if,
Yeah.
if someone in America um, can feel
Can
this,
see this, yeah, and
yeah,
feel it. Yeah. Yeah.
it's quite extraordinary. And I think, another person commented on the post where I included the video from RT, because for me,
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was an expression of a
Yeah.
universal grief. And that's
Yeah.
what they actually said to me. They said that one video told them everything. They didn't actually need to read anything else. That told
Yeah.
them the devastation and the effect of Nasrallah's martyrdom would
Yeah.
have upon those who venerated him
Yeah.
and looked up to him. And in a sense, even people here said to me, I can't believe I'm not going to hear his speeches. I
Yeah.
used to wait for them because they gave me courage. I
Yeah.
remember speaking to someone here, Salam Alawi, who now,
Yeah.
I think she's the head of the sports ministry or one of the biggest committees here. And
Yeah.
I remember her telling the story when she was asked by, I think it was Syria TV, who's the leader that you most venerate, that you most look up to? And she immediately said, without hesitation, Sayyid Nasrallah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because he was one of a kind, Vanessa.
yeah,
And I think what Israel doesn't understand is by doing this, his influence and his power was confined to the axis of resistance. Now it is boundless. And I'm not just saying this out of emotion. I've been watching and seeing what's happening across the world. I've been watching and seeing what's happening, the protesters and the people and the posts. And I've not answered anyone. I only can answer. I answered one of the trolls because he made that part into a meme, and I love it so much. I saved it. I'm going to be using it to troll my kids, but of me crying. That is. That's the only person that I replied to. But I didn't reply to any of the trolls, but the way that I saw how people that I never knew, and even people who didn't even follow my work, how they were defending my right to have sentiments, to have these feelings, it just gave me so much strength and gave me so much hope for what will come next because of the martyrdom of this very special leader.
Yeah, exactly. Let's, you mentioned there what came next, and before we started speaking on the recording, we were talking, you know, about what might come next, and we very briefly touched upon what you think might be the possible scenario. And I actually agree with you from having been speaking to people here, and of course, you know, again, we've been messaging. There have been drone attacks here. There's been air defense in the last few days. There's been going on. There's been attacks in Homs on the border with Lebanon. There's been attacks against the Syrian-Lebanese border, even in, for people to understand, the main Masra border, which is the main crossing. They've even targeted there, with thousands of Syrian refugees that were living in Lebanon and Lebanese refugees coming through that border. And they targeted Shtura, which is the main kind of money-changing shopping area for you.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
What does that tell you? What are they preparing for?
Yeah. So
exactly. They're preparing for a land invasion that could get them to that specific area to shut down the land border between Syria and Lebanon. And I think they didn't learn from the Arqub battle that happened in the late 70s, early 80s, but majorly in the 70s.
Know what happened in that battle, so that
they did invade and they got there, but they got to Arqub and they were flattened by the Syrian Arab army and by the Arab army. There was an Arab army comprised of Lebanese, Palestinians, Libyans, Tunisians, Algerians, Yemenis. We had Yemenis to a point that there was a Yemeni battalion fighting in Arqub. Their commander, to show you how vile Israel is, their commander lived through the battle and went back to Yemen. Israeli jet fighters took off and took part of the Saudi campaign against Yemen. And in 2015, the first Israeli pilot that took part in the bombardment campaign bombed the house of the commander that took part in the Arqub battles in South Lebanon. They killed him more than 40 years later.
Crazy.
Just to tell you who they are. So in that area in Arqub, they were able to get there with their tanks, but they never returned. They were killed on sight. It was a bloodbath. If you read about it, it is one of the most iconic battles that the Syrian Arab Army and the Arab Army comprised of several Arab nationalities took part in. And it was a complete defeat for the Israeli enemy.
So
that was in the 70s and 80s. That's before Hezbollah.
Yeah. And I think because, you know, my impression is, and I really wanted to mention this because so many people, even really good people, have picked up this story, and it's completely fake, is this idea of there being 40,000 soldiers from Iraq and Yemen and Syria on the border with the Golan occupied territories. Now, I would love for that to be a reality, but it really isn't. You know, I'm here in Syria. And
if they keep up this narrative, if they keep up this narrative, and I mean, come on. I mean, Yemenis are Yemenis. You think we're not going to be able to spot a Yemeni in southern Syria? Really?
Exactly.
Really? But anyways, that's not the case. Let them do it, Vanessa.
Mm.
Let them put a pretext for their invasion, and it will be the last time an Israeli tank ever leaves occupied Palestine. And I'm 100% sure of what I'm saying.
Mm. Because, I mean, we were talking about this. So when the ground forces from the Zionist military enter Lebanese territory, at that point they lose their advantage, because at that point the Zionist Air Force no longer has like a carte blanche to bomb wherever it likes. It's no longer, it's no longer operational in the same way that it is now, right? That is entirely to Hezbollah's advantage.
Exactly. And this is what Hezbollah is looking for, because if they let's say Israel starts a land invasion, I don't think we're going to see an attack by Hezbollah the same way that we saw in 2006, where the attack was thwarted at the very entrance of Lebanon. I think they will allow them to get to a certain point, which would make it very hard for the Air Force to take part in that attack. Meaning, the deeper Zionist Israel's make it, and they really don't care about the litany. They don't care about the litany whatsoever. They want to get to the part where it stops any sort of supplies that comes from Syria to Lebanon. And they think it's going to be easy. And it's going to be the hardest thing that they've ever done. And none of them will return. You're going to see Apache helicopters being downed. You're going to be seeing Merkava tanks being blown up to pieces. I mean, look at what Rafah is doing to them. Look at what entire Gaza did to them from point blank, putting detonation devices and killing everyone inside of those tanks. That's in Gaza. Can you imagine with weapons owned by the resistance in Lebanon, what they could do to the Merkava and to the Humvees and to the infantry and to the Apache helicopters? It's going to be a bloodbath. Yes, there are going to be a lot of civilian casualties, because I don't think there's going to be any more place for people to leave to, but it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, and I think, also for people to understand that that's also part and parcel of why the US recently claiming that it's in response to the Islamic resistance Iraq targeting of US illegal military bases in the northeast of Syria. But of course they've been trying for years now to shut down the Al-Bukamal border, which is the last remaining land bridge from Iran.
And they keep forgetting, Vanessa, they keep forgetting that if they actually do a ground invasion, they're going to have a weak point from the south in Gaza. They're going to start having a weak point in Lebanon, and they keep forgetting that the ballistic missiles of the Yemenis and the drones and ballistic missiles of the Iraqis will rain on them like there's no tomorrow. And we have not even mentioned what Iran would be willing to do.
And the fact that there are ground forces. I mean, I've said there are not 40,000 ground forces right now, but they're ready. This is they're ready to mobilize in Iraq, in Yemen, Afghanis, and people don't even know what's going to happen in, let's say, the normalized states, because we've seen already in Bahrain how the people who had their Palestinian protests put down have now refused to any longer be suppressed, and they've risen up about Nasrallah's assassination.
This pure blood that was shed by the Israeli entity, the blood shed by Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah will be the blood that will literally be the flood of Al-Aqsa that will take away the last occupying force in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria.
In his last speech, he referred, I know that he often referred to martyrdom, but to me, when I listened to that final speech, I kind of, I won't say my heart stopped, but I kind of took a sharp intake of breath. Because it felt to me almost like he was saying, I won't be
goodbye.
with you.
Well, it's something spiritual, and I don't think either our friends or our foes in the West will understand this, Vanessa, but you and I do completely understand this. And I've been after the assassination. I got a voice note from a very, very good friend of mine, Abuna Ilyas Sahlawi,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
giving his condolences, and he said something that, but this man, whatever he says, it just strikes the inner core of my spirit. And he says that he says Busharatun Nasr al-Hasim. He says this is the uh, Bushara means the good news. This is what happened is good news because it is the beginning, the introduction into unwavering victory.
Mm.
And whatever that man says, I truly believe. I've read all of his books. He's he should be, I mean, his books should be translated to every language out there for people to
Yes.
understand our region better.
Yeah.
And it's just the words of people like him
Mm.
and the spiritual side of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah will not be really understood now. I think it's going to be taking years for our both foes and friends, especially in the Western culture, to understand who Sayyid Hassan was, who he is still in the hearts and minds of his followers, and what kind of a revolution his martyrdom has started around the world.
Mm. Yeah, and you know these pivotal figures in history. I mean, you remember General Issam Zahraddin,
Yeah, of course.
who was, you know, one of the most iconic figures of the regime change war against Syria, who liberated
Yeah,
from ISIS, and who
yeah,
was killed. He knew his death was coming. He knew,
yeah,
because he
yeah,
told then the Grand Mufti Hassoun,
yeah,
he
yeah.
told him, this will be my last battle. I will live until I liberate Deir ez-Zor. You
Yeah.
know, these great leaders
Men, yeah,
who come among us to really, whether we're Western, whether we're from West Asia, whatever denomination we are, and
different.
that's
Yeah,
something I really want to touch on also,
yeah,
is, you know, I've been trying to explain to people this isn't some kind of sectarian organization.
no,
This is an organization that has as its ethos to defend the oppressed wherever and whoever the
they
oppressed.
are. Yeah,
And I,
yeah,
you know, I would love you just to finish with something on this. I mean, I in Syria experienced Hezbollah's relationship with Christianity here, but also
yeah,
in Lebanon, in Al-Qa, when I went after the suicide bombing.
yeah.
And I saw Hezbollah immediately mobilize to protect the 5,000 Christians that had 35,000 extremist refugees that were effectively the armed groups that had fled from Syria into Lebanon and camped on the doorstep of this tiny Christian community. So,
Well,
you know, if you can just finish with an explanation
yeah.
of, I guess, who is Hezbollah in relation to the region and to the various communities in that region.
Hezbollah believes in their core ideology, and it's found in their manifesto, by the way, that they are the soldiers of Imam Mahdi, Ajalallah ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. Imam Mahdi is the savior. You know, in religions that are monolithic religions that have the hierarchy of one God, usually Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there's always a savior. There's always someone who's going to come at the end of time and save humanity. And Hezbollah was built after the Islamic Revolution in Iran as an extension to the Islamic Republic's Guard Corps,
Mm.
not in an imperial way, but in an ideological way, meaning we are preparing soldiers for the return of Imam Mahdi, who's going to be coming alongside Jesus Christ. And that's found in the scriptures of both Muslims and Christians. It's not hidden. You can read about it, you can learn about it. And when I speak about this, some people who are more of atheists or maybe what they call themselves skepticals or whatever, think that I'm speaking gibberish, but that gibberish for you is an ideology and spirituality for millions of humans across the world, which made way for the successes that was seen in the Islamic Revolution and was extended to the resistance in Lebanon, and then therefore creating this axis of resistance across West Asia. And despite the fact that, for example, in Yemen, the Ansarullah, they don't believe in that. They stop at the seventh Imam. They don't go all the way to the 12th Imam. So the Imam Mahdi is a direct descendant of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because Prophet Muhammad has his daughter married Imam Ali. Imam Ali had Imam Hussein, Imam Hassan, and Imam Hassan had a son, and his son had a son, until we get to the 12th Imam.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a family tree that is the pure of the pure. And Imam Mahdi is just like we believe in Islam that Jesus Christ was basically taken to another place, which is not our dimension. Our brothers and sisters in Christianity believe that Jesus Christ was crucified and then he came back to life. We think that he never left this life to begin with, but he's not in this dimension, along with Imam Mahdi, and we think that he's coming back. The issue is, it doesn't matter if Christians believe that he was crucified and Muslims believe he was not. What matters is that both of them believe that he's coming back. And we in Shia and Islam believe that he's going to be coming back with Imam Mahdi, and we're going to have these leaders come together because they are going to unify Christians and Muslims under one banner for the biggest battle of humanity. And ever since it's still hard for me to say Martyr Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah. I'm not used to the thought, but I'll get used to it. Ever since Martyr Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah passed, he rose as a martyr, a lot of people have been explaining how this can be some sort of a sign for an upcoming global war. And it's not only within Shia Islam. I mean, I don't know if you read the latest by Dugin, who's a Christian Orthodox.
Yeah.
And his piece said that the end of the world is coming with the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah. I think he's taking it from a certain viewpoint of his mentality and his philosophy, and I do understand his background, but it's the same thing that what I'm talking about right here, is that it is his blood will be like a domino effect across the world, not only here. It will inspire people who yearn for freedom and liberation to take that step and do it. He's going to inspire even people in the West, where we have always thought that the Western values have killed the last spark of resistance in the hearts and minds of the Western public, but we're seeing it inflaming again. And this will create a revolution. And this revolution is at the very top. Objectives of this revolution is to prepare for the coming of the Savior, which is Imam Mahdi and Jesus Christ. This is what fuels the resilience and the struggle in the hearts and minds of the natives of this land. It's faith. And this is what really separates them from the Western war machine that is based on pure materialistic issues that we call in Arabic dunya. Dunya is life as we know it, but the word dunya in Arabic is the very least deep levels of being, which means it's the most disgusting form of being, life as it is. It is always full of pain. It is always full of regret. It is full of mistakes, and we live through it. We try to hustle through it without hurting anyone, and yet you need to stop and help those who are in need. And that's what Hezbollah is doing, and the axis of resistance is doing, because we not only saw Hezbollah do it in Syria and Lebanon by defending the Christians, we also saw the Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq do it by defending Mosul, for example, if you remember. And we also see it in Yemen, where in Yemen you even have Jews who support Ansarullah, because the essence of Judaism actually begins in Yemen historically.
Or even in Iran. I mean, I met
exactly. So it's not about defending your religion or your sect. It's about standing in the face of the oppressor, supporting the oppressed, or else whatever you're doing in this life of yours is considered as weak and as denigrating as basically being like your life would be compared to a maggot. When I use the word, sometimes people laugh because I use it because I don't want to use any words that would make me violate the community standards of social media. So I use words like you maggot instead, but I would be saying a very bad word, but I'm a Muslim pious woman. I cannot say it out loud. I can only like keep it in my brain. So I use that word. But that word, in the essence of spirituality, means you're literally nothing. You're a speck that can be crushed at any moment. This is everyone living on this globe. But if we want to do good, we need to unite and we need to stand in the face of tyrants and oppressors. And I think Israel over the past year has proved to the entire world that it is the oppressors of our lifetime.
Yes, absolutely. Marwa, I think that's a good place to finish. Thank you so much. I know it was difficult for you at certain points. And
it's something, it's healthy for me to talk about it, to cope with it, and to accept it. But it's also very important for our friends and foes to listen to us, to know what the strategy is. And for all those who keep posting and tweeting, and some of them who send me a message. Look, I have friends from all over the world, and I admire my friends and I thank them. But some of them live here in Lebanon, some of them are actually Americans. But by God, they live on La La Land. Wallah al-Azim. Yani they speak and I go like, I start staring into the void. I had one message that said, I wish for peace and love. I wish we can all hug. I was like, woman, I'm gonna smack you. What, have you been living with us for the past year? Look at the love that has been raining on the heads of babies in Gaza and the love that has been raining on the heads of my people right here in Lebanon. What are you talking about? You know, those people, just please stay away from me. I love you. I respect you. Just please stay away from me at the moment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this pacifism, I come up against it all the time. People who've said to me in the past, even before October the 7th, well, I don't understand. Why don't Palestinians just demonstrate peacefully against the occupation?
By the way, they did so in the Grand March, and they were
March.
shot with bullets that would explode in their legs to make sure that they are amputees. But people are just ignorant, my love.
They are, and you know, pacifism, I always say, is a privilege of countries that haven't faced war in the last huge number of generations. You know,
sometimes war is a bit healthy because it brings you back to the reality of things. It puts you in perspective as to what the priorities are, and the priority is always family, friend, healthy community, and land. That's where your dignity relies, and faith is what holds everything else.
Marwa, thank you again so much. I hope to see you very soon. And of course, we'll be speaking over the next few days anyway, because events are kind of
escalating.
Very fast here.
I'll see you soon. And thank you again for allowing me on your platform and for giving me a space to rant, let's say, not to analyze. It was just maybe a geopolitical rant.
It was a geopolitical catharsis. There you go.
Yes.
Take care, my dear. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.